So this is Eric, our regional sports director at the YMCA. This is who I'm interviewing for our project. Eric, how did you first get started in this field?
Well, I began as a youth director within the same department, and then eventually there was an opening where I could transition into sports, which I was a bit more passionate about. So I was able to make that change pretty smoothly that way.
Awesome. What is it like working at your company?
Every day is a little bit different. Every season's a little bit different. Just rotating sports every 9 weeks or so. You kind of get a different set of kids, set of coaches, set of parents, and so it definitely keeps you on your toes, and you got to be just ready for any kind of new situation that might come up on an everyday basis.
So what projects are you guys currently working on with whether it's soccer or basketball or just overall?
So we have soccer and basketball leagues happening right now. We're kind of working on sustainable growth. We have a new sports director that I supervise, and so it's been great to kind of teach her some new things, but also just trying to make sure that we have strong programs and growing programs, but not growing at a rate that we can't sustain. So
right, of course. How did you guys, or why did you choose this company over like others in the field that you'd say?
Just kind of the foundations that I had previously. So just the previous YMCA work experience kind of made it a more simple transition. So
right. So what would you say is like the most rewarding part about being in your industry or just at your job in general?
I think just seeing kids who maybe don't have a great sporting background and maybe mom or dad kind of forced them into it. It was not part of their original plan necessarily. They come to us, they learn to love it, and they kind of pick up like a lifetime skill as a result.
Do you have any examples by chance?
Yeah, I have a couple of kids. The Matthew family, both of their son and their daughter just kind of like wanted to meet some new people in the community, and so they came to us, and now they volunteer with us. They do every sport every season, and so just kind of seeing that environment kind of created by our sports league.
So with my background, like in college, being sports management, how do you feel like that would be like a leverage in getting a position like yours or anywhere in that field?
I think that having an understanding of the ins and outs of how a good sports league is run would translate very well, obviously. I think that the YMCA is kind of different in that we're a bit more recreational and it's more about community involvement, but anyone who has that experience of pros and cons of what good leagues look like, I think is going to translate directly.
Right. What job search advice would you give someone in my situation or in another situation for getting this job or just in general within the sports field?
Yeah, I think you have to be willing to kind of do a lot of dirty work at first. I think perhaps students have this visual of they can just kind of walk into like a full-time dream job, and a lot of times it's going to be being more on the ground level, getting your hands dirty, getting your feet dirty. So just being willing to put in the time and being flexible because typically you just don't walk into exactly what you want to be doing.
Right, of course. So looking at like your personal career, what would you feel would be your worst career decision or just a career decision that you would change?
A career decision that I would change. It's difficult to say. Sports was not what I went to school for in the first place. And so either committing to it far earlier would have been helpful. I probably could be more advanced in my career now. So I'd say just identifying more of a clear long-term vision, not just like 4 to 10 years, but more like 10 to 20 years.
Right. So for your personal job, what would you say is like the biggest day-to-day challenge that you come across?
I think staffing is always an issue because we're hiring staff in our case that they're not like professionally trained referees. They are just like part-time high schoolers and college kids most of the time.
A lot of volunteer base.
A lot of volunteer, and so you kind of lose that control of like professionalism. Which can be difficult, but I think just dealing with low-paid part-time staff as well as volunteers, you kind of lose some accountability that way.
So for your job, like how does that affect your general lifestyles? Is it a lot of working late nights, weekends, or?
Yeah, I think someone in sports has to be okay with you're basically 24 hours, 7 days a week on call. It's nights, it's weekends. I think especially coming from like a collegiate lifestyle into sports, that might be an abrupt transition of like, okay, now I'm working Saturdays and Sundays, and when do I find time for myself? That answer can vary, so just kind of being okay with making that sacrifice.
Transitioning back to like the sports field in general, how do you see someone, like what are some common career paths that you think would be to get to where you are today?
So I think most likely we're talking about some sort of internship, and so that probably means little to no pay. So I think putting yourself in a position where you can afford to make that sacrifice for months to years, just kind of getting more exposure to how professionals are doing it, and typically that means little to no pay.
Right. So what related fields do you think I should like consider looking into if I wanted to get to this degree or job, and then any other job really in the sports field overall?
Yeah. So the two that come to mind right away are definitely coaching and officiating, both of which can be done on a volunteer basis. It kind of makes it easier to get into in the first place. So I think that those can kind of understand the multiple lenses of a sports league would go a long way.
If you could do it over again or all over again, how would you choose this? Or would you choose the same career path for yourself? If not, what would you change about it?
I think I would. I just think I would invest more time and energy into it early on. Like I said, this is not what I went to school for necessarily, and so just applying myself more from a sporting standpoint, both professionally as well as academically from an earlier date.
And just reiterating again, what are like your specific job at the Y for what you do? So
I'm our regional sports director, and that means that I oversee all of our youth and adult sports leagues at 2 different branches in Cary.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for your time.
All right, appreciate it.